Welcome to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, bringing baby boomers proven strategies and innovative products for getting fit, staying fit, so you can live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Here's your host, best-selling author and fitness advocate, Phil Ferris.
This is Phil Ferris, and welcome to our show. Never Too Late for Fitness Radio provides answers and straight talk about fitness, nutrition, and healthy lifestyles for people over 50. During each show, we talk with professionals and experts solving real problems with proven solutions you can apply to your day-to-day life. Today's show is for people over 50 who are faced with the challenge of helping their aging parents when the health of one or both is declining. Many people are like me and have this challenge thrust upon them unexpectedly. A short while ago, my 82-year-old mother went from being able to live independently to needing assisted living almost overnight. My brother, two sisters, and I spent 2 weeks of frantic research online and over the phone trying to find the best place for her mother. We were lucky. We found a great place for my mom. But we were lucky because none of us was prepared for what we encountered. The stress and overwhelm was incredible. My guest today is someone who is trained to help relieve much of the stress and the overwhelm that accompanies the daunting task of helping your aging parents transition to the next phase of their lives. Geoff Morris is a realtor with eXp Realty and is a senior real estate specialist, or SRES, which I'd like to point out only 5% of realtors achieve this designation. With his SRES training, Geoff is able to help clients with life-changing choices and options. Geoff has 11 hands-on years of experience in real estate and 30-plus years financial background as a senior bank officer. He is also vice chair of his Realtor Association's Senior Citizens Committee. Welcome to the show, Geoff.
Well, thanks, Phil. I really appreciate that your show's focus on providing those answers and straight talk to folks over 50 today, including the baby boomers that may be helping mom or dad as they get older.
Well, great. To get started, can you describe the clients you work with and the kinds of services you provide?
Well, the Senior Services Committee that I serve on for our association was formed about 8 years ago with the idea of helping our older clients and their adult kids. As you can imagine, most of us really just want to stay in our own homes for as long as possible rather than go live in some nursing home. Right. Particularly if you're faced with a sudden emergency with mom or dad, like you were, Phil, it's very easy to get overwhelmed overnight. And our role is to provide access to the specific resources that you might be needing. Some of the examples that I will use include retrofitting a home for safety, estate planning, asset protection, Social Security, Medicare, decluttering a home, supplemental health insurance, estate sales, and the many other needs that truly are unique to everybody's different circumstances.
Okay, now those are things we had to go through. Now, most people have a backstory about why they took a certain path in their careers. How did you decide to focus on this area of real estate?
Well, kind of like what happened to you, Phil. My wife and I almost overnight found that we needed to find safer homes for both of our widowed moms, each of which, were very independent women that cherished their independence and lived alone in their own homes. For entirely different reasons, they both needed to move, like now, and we quickly realized that we didn't know squat about where to turn to or who to trust in making those decisions. When I later learned, about 4 years ago, that realtors can choose to go through some extensive training specifically to help seniors, I knew I'd be able to combine the hands-on experience that I had with my own two moms with the resources that I gained from getting that SRES designation, which is a common theme really amongst all of my fellow SRES realtors. They usually have a story, why they got into it. So there aren't that many of us SRES realtors yet. So if you're needing some independent input on your own parent circumstances, I'd encourage your listeners to find a realtor that has that SRES training.
Okay. So what are some of the most common reasons that people actually seek you out?
Generally, it can be because of a sudden health issue. For example, mom or dad break a hip, or they suffer a stroke or a heart attack. In truth, waiting for that kind of an emergency to happen before putting a plan into place is not the way to go, because you want to make some of those huge decisions with a clear head in an unstressed way.
Okay, because these situations can be stressful not only for the parent, but also for the adult children that are trying to help make these decisions. Why are these issues so challenging when they come up unexpectedly?
Well, the thing is, if they haven't lined things up ahead of time through estate planning or long-term health insurance, affordability is the problem that I see most frequently. And if they haven't structured their assets, their powers of attorney, their DNRs, and other planning ahead of time, they quickly find themselves behind the eight ball. It's sort of like having to deal with making sudden funeral arrangements when a family member, when a family is going through the crippling emotions of dealing with the loss of a loved one. Making arrangements for mom and dad ahead of time is critical in managing their aging process.
Can you talk a little bit about the kind of the emotional issues that the adult children go through that are unique to them when they're in this situation?
The main thing to identify, I think, is what's important to them as a family. Communication is critical, and many times we adult kids are uncomfortable having the talk with mom or dad because we feel guilty, or because they've been so strong and independent all these years as our parents. Now that it's our turn to care for them, it's critical to involve them in the process, and not just to spring something on them without their input. A good rule of thumb, I think, to follow is, what will I want when it's my turn? What will I want my kids to help me with? It really needs to be proactive, collaborative, not, here it is, take it or leave it.
And what makes it, at least in my situation, challenging was the fact that my two sisters, my brother, and I all have our own lives. And we all kind of have this myth in our minds that the parent's going to live forever. And that, that's, we don't want to have that thought in our head. So we don't have that conversation, and we're focusing on our life. And all of a sudden we have this big disruption, and, none of us is prepared for it. And how, who does the talk? Who looks at this? And now you have family dynamics involved. Plus, you're still trying to manage your life, and that was a hard part that we experienced, was just how do you divvy it up, and how do you get informed and still respect our parent. Now, what's your particular take, and how do you actually help people deal with these kinds of issues? I mean, you've had a fair amount of experience with it, so just kind of walk us through what you try and do so that the good decisions surfaces in a positive way.
I guess kind of going back to what I was saying a minute ago, it really does depend on their own parents' unique circumstances, and as you mentioned, what family members are around that can assist with that process. There really is no one size fits all. But a great place to start is, I think, talking with a realtor that has that SRES designation, so that they can help guide the family through their particular challenges. Probably the thing that I'd stress the most is taking action now, right after this broadcast, to begin evaluating where your loved ones are financially and from a powers of attorney's standpoint. For example, the state of Illinois has what's called a 5-year look back, meaning that whatever estate planning or asset reallocation that you do, proactively, can be undone if your health emergency occurs before those 5 years go by. So as we both know from personal experience, Phil, someone's health can change overnight. There's no time to waste, and putting one's affairs in order by starting with that process, I think, now.
Okay. And are there any other, I guess, general considerations that people should have now that would help them start to plan for this eventuality?
Well, I think Probably it sounded, from what you were telling me yourself and my own experience, one area that can be very confusing are all the many kinds of senior housing choices that are available. Most people, would prefer living in their own homes forever or as long as possible. So the first thing to consider is making the existing home a safe place to continue living in, perhaps with such things as grab bars, lower counters, wider doorways, or a ramp. If that's not an option, the choices include having mom or dad move in with you, or having them move to an active senior community like Adele Webb, or to an independent living facility with private homes or apartments. If they need more care, the choices will include rehab, supportive living facilities, assisted living facilities, memory care, 24-hour skilled nursing. All those buzzwords, kind of get confused. And, generically speaking, I know when we were looking, all that stuff was mumbo jumbo, and we just didn't know where to start.
Okay. So, again, looking at all the different options, are there some general guidelines you can give for assessing the appropriateness of each option for parents that people can use when because I know when you're confronted with all these different options, it's like, what does this really mean? So could you give us, I know, every situation is unique, but some general guidelines that help people kind of sort through initially the onslaught of options?
Well, I think probably safety is the main focus first. And I would say, starting with one of those portable alert pendant things that they can press if they fall down, we need to make sure that they're safe wherever that happens to be. Besides that, again, focusing on the fact that most of us want to age in place, as it's called, having grab bars in the bathrooms and hallways can be important. Perhaps widening the doorways to fit a wheelchair, lowering those kitchen and bathroom counters, improving the light, having no loose throw rugs around, or even building a ramp to replace doorsteps. If someone has stairs in their home, going up and downstairs, they may want to modify the main floor so they can do everything, from that one floor, rather than having to, do something that now may be a dangerous activity, and going up and down the stairs. I think in evaluating the specific types of places that somebody can live, it really comes down to their physical abilities, it comes down to their mental abilities, and it comes down to their financial restrictions, because it's a horribly expensive problem that our country is getting more and more into, simply because we're living longer, and it seems like there's more senior facilities being built these days than anything else.
Yeah. Now, let's assume that someone makes a decision that aging in place is not an option, and they're going to have to move to another. And you talked about the physical issues and the mental issues and the financial issues. What other factors should come into play in making that decision about moving to a new locale, which can be very, very upsetting to someone that's perhaps has been in a house for 30, 40, 50 years?
Absolutely, because they're entrenched in their community. They have, their churches and their social organizations and their local grocery stores, and whatever they're doing, perhaps even as a retired individual driving around town and taking care of themselves. All of a sudden, they're yanked out of what they're familiar with. Another thing, of course, is proximity to family. In your case, there were three of you. Well, I'm not sure, how far.
Right, there were three of us were in Chicago. One was down in Knoxville. So we had to find a place that was, driving distance for all three.
Yeah. And, in our case, I have two other siblings that are in the Chicago area, but I've got two, one in St. Louis and, one that was in Washington. And so they pretty much delegated the, that to the local part of the family. And then the other thing, Phil, you might have encountered is that you really do need to have one person designated as the decision maker. You cannot have, in my case, you couldn't have 5 siblings each have an equal say, because then you're going to get nothing done.
Right.
And that opens up the possibility, that the siblings' feelings might get hurt, or how come I wasn't this, or how come, and they don't, they're busy in their lives, perhaps 200 to 1,000 miles away. So all of a sudden, hearing something that they maybe aren't as aware of as the local folks might be, might set off something that, causes some friction.
And, to play on that is that all sorts of family dynamics come into play, good and bad, during times of stress and making these kinds of decisions. And I know that my sister, who was down in Knoxville, was feeling guilty about not being able to contribute as much initially because she was just doing phone things. She wasn't physically able to go to facilities and check them out. And everybody has their own baggage they're carrying around, and it tends to, conflicts and buttons get pushed during this time. And we forget that normal, because it's not a normal type of environment that you're dealing with in terms of the types of decisions you make. We found that one of the things that was important was kind of the community feel of the location, because my mother was very alert, physically active, wanted to do things. And so really just the visual appeal and what was going on, she wanted to volunteer, she wanted to work, she wanted to, all those things. And those were important factors because she said, I just don't want to sit there. I still want to live. And so that was an important criteria for us as we looked at the various facilities in terms of what they offered, not just in terms of the safety and the meals and it's like, what else is there?
Right.
And that was the social component, the community component was essential. And that turned out to be, a godsend because, eventually she became indoctrinated into that community. And that replaced her old neighborhood.
And that's funny that you say it because my one mom was exactly opposite of that. She's still with us, so independent that, she couldn't be bothered with all of the activities. She was more, wanting to continue her lifestyle, which was, read, and, music, and internet, all these. And the sad thing is, now that she's declining even further, she's slowly losing interest in all of those things. So the activities, I think, really are huge, and the places that you can pick. Phil, you're right. The whole environment, the attitude of the staff, are they genuine or are they just, working 8 to 5? And let me tell you, the good ones, they bust their tails working for the folks that live there, and they get to be family. And, one of the saddest things for us, whenever we go visit my mom, even today, they have this big old piano in the front room as you walk in. And every week, you kind of hate to go look at the piano because they'll have, 1 or 2 or 3 or more photographs on the piano. Basically, we call it the piano of death because, Annie or Fred or, Zeke, might have passed away this week. And I know that really plays hard on the staff there because they do. They really work, the good places will take good care of mom and dad. But on the other hand, that's not to excuse the family members for coming with regularity and at odd times of the day, not all that predictable, just to see, what's mom up to at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, what's mom up to at 7 o'clock for breakfast. And so, every person is unique, every facility is unique, but I think the common element is what we all want is we want, our parent or our loved one to be in the most supportive place that they possibly can be.
Now, Geoff, can you share like an example of how you helped the family kind of navigate this process and what role you played in helping them go through it? Because as the objective advocate and educator, can you explain how that might work with an actual example?
I'll just use my own family as an example, Phil.
Okay.
Starting with us getting help from a good estate planning attorney about 15 years ago, with important input from our 2 moms. My wife and I ended up updating our wills and the ownership of property and putting powers of attorney and medical directives into place so that we could legally and ethically do for them what we knew they one day wouldn't be able to do for themselves. So that's really where I'd start, is by reviewing one's financial capabilities and who's going to have the authority to do certain things, and what the best choices might be based on answering those initial questions.
And then also getting into the situation if health starts to fail and they can't make those decisions, who makes those decisions, and have input from the parent about what they want in case.
Exactly. They may not want to be kept alive artificially. They may want to be kept alive indefinitely. And that's not our decision to make, in my opinion. That's their decision to make. And whether we agree with it or not, I believe we need to honor that.
And so really the time to have those discussions is before they become an issue?
Absolutely. And as I stressed before, I really think that that's something that you can't put off. If you're listening to this show and, mom or dad are starting to slow down a little bit, you just need to get started, and you need to be directed to trustworthy providers and services. And I think the trustworthy part is would come from an SRES Realtor that has had this kind of experience. And incidentally, a great way for your listeners perhaps to get started is to come out to one of our association's 2 remaining conferences. We're calling them the Boomers and Beyond conferences. One is in Matson in 2 weeks, and the other one is in Grays Lake at the end of July. And I especially want to give a huge shout out to the Realtors and to the association staff who volunteered with me to organize the June 23rd event in Matson, primarily being Fred Zeilner, Evie Bogato, Pat Lasowski, Ramona Shimka, and Sarah Hunkler. Unlike your typical senior expo, where a ton of vendors are simply there trying to sell you something, our association's main focus is on helping to educate baby boomers and their parents with live presentations in our example in Matson. We're going to have senior fraud prevention, how to communicate with a family about the choices. We're going to have a panel discussion on preparing now for mom's future, and a segment on how the sandwich generation may be caring for their own children and their parents at the same time. Now that's pretty challenging.
Yes, it is. And so, what are the dates of the 2 expos again?
The first one in Matson is June the 23rd, so in about 2 weeks. It's being held at the Matson Community Center. That's a place. It's actually kind of like a gathering place for the entire village. And then on July the 29th, it's in Grays Lake. And I can certainly give you, more information about that. Keep in mind that both conferences are completely free to the public. And there are, some excellent door prizes and food to be enjoyed. Probably the single best place to go find out more information, because it is being updated, would be the association's website, which is, www.moreboomersandbeyond.com. Let me repeat that, more, M-O-R-E, boomers and beyond.com. We're going to be all over Facebook. We have a sticky note reminder that's being attached to the daily Southtown the week before our June the 23rd event. And of course, your listeners can simply call Fred or Evie or myself or Pat, and we'll be happy to answer, all their questions, personally.
And if people want to get a hold of you specifically, where should they go?
Well, if they're wanting to find out about the conference, as I say, you can go back to that website, or if they prefer to talk to me, I'll just give you my phone number, which is 708-680-6750. And I can certainly direct them, on this particular conference, or, to other resources that, they've been thinking about needing. Who do they go to? Who do they trust? How do they get started?
Because that's really one of the other I guess, assets that you provide is that you're a connector of, oh, I need a handyman to do this. I need this. And you have things that you haven't thought about, and you need trusted vendors or professionals that can help you do it. And because you've been doing this so long, you have access to people you know can do the things that you can recommend. And that's always very, very helpful, because your to-do list gets very high, very long, and you just don't know where to go or where to start.
Well, and I think a lot of times people are fooled into thinking, well, no big deal. I'll just go to the Yellow Pages if you can find a Yellow Page. But if you instead go to Google, whatever topic you're looking, you don't know which one of those, that pop up to believe or to trust. And so you're right. You really do want to start with a source that doesn't, I don't have any financial interest in referring you to, Bob, the estate planner, or, Sally, the person that's going to come in and retrofit your house. I want to hook up, and I do hook up with people that I trust and that I know will do, reputable and professional work for people.
Okay, well, that's good to know. Well, Geoff, I want to thank you so much for sharing your information and insights today. And again, I'd recommend people, if they, in a very casual way to get informed about your options and the resources available to you, to check out, the expo in Matson on June 23rd. So, Geoff, thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, Phil, we thank you very much for the opportunity, and to, if you get anything out of this, as a listener, I'm hoping that Phil and I, perhaps lit a fire under you to get started. That's really what it comes down to, and seek out, an SRES, a realtor to move you in the right direction depending on where you live, and of course, if you're in the South Burbs, out here by me in Orland Park, Mokina, New Lenox, Frankfurt area, I'm happy to help you personally.
Well, great. Well, you have a great day then.
Thank you, Phil. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, hosted by Phil Ferris. To learn more about the guests or resources on our show today, or to listen to past episodes, go to nevertoolateforfitness.com.